Welcome, everybody, to Indiana Basketball Weekly on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. Indiana Basketball Weekly is brought to you by mybookie.ag. You can go to thegruelingtruth.net, click on the banner. It'll take you directly to the website. You can bet on the Indiana-Louisville game this week. I'm your host for the Indiana Basketball Weekly show, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I want to welcome him, my co-host, former Indiana Basketball Hall of Famer, played on the 1981 National Championship Hoosiers team. Help me welcome to the show, Steve Risley.
Hey, Mike, how you doing? Question, former Hall of Famer, did I get booted out of the Hall of Fame back in Indiana, something I don't know about?
Yeah, I actually petitioned for it, and I just got word like 5 minutes ago that you're out.
You're a Renaissance guy.
Well, I meant to start off former Indiana Hoosier, but since we're live, sometimes shit goes awry. All right.
There you go.
Let's go ahead. I know we were all positive last week after the Duke game. We thought we could get 2 wins to start the Big Ten season. We obviously couldn't. The Michigan Wolverines beat the Indiana Hoosiers last Saturday, 69-55. And that was a game where offensively the Hoosiers looked like they did against Indiana State. They were stagnant. They were just chucking threes. I mean, the only really positive I saw from the game was Juwan Morgan with 24 points and 8 rebounds. What was your take on the game against the Wolverines?
I don't know that I'm a lot less positive than I was after the Duke game. I think a lot of what happened against Michigan was realistically to be expected. I mean, it's a very young team. They're a very unorganized basketball team. They're still trying to learn a system. Consistency is what every college basketball coach and program strives for. And even in the heyday of Bob Knight, he strived for just consistency. Just be consistent. And I think to have those kinds of expectations of a team of the makeup of this edition of Indiana basketball is, still somewhat on the unrealistic side, although on the hopeful side. If you really break down the game, and I've had plenty of opportunity to do it, Michigan jumps out on us, shooting lights out on the three-pointers right off the beginning of the game. And they get up on a big 15, 16-point lead, something like that pretty quick, just drilling three after three after three. And then essentially from there on in, we play them relatively even. It ends up being a 14-point win for Michigan. But I think if you look at the first 5, 6, 7 minutes of the game, they probably got 13, 14 points up on us right off the get-go. Now, what that breeded in the game after they got that lead is it breeded us to start reverting back to our athletic skill sets rather than our mental skill sets, where we did see a reverting back to dribble across half court, take the first spot we can get up behind a three-point arc and start firing. We stopped trying to drill the ball inside and dancing with the one who brung you, so to speak. And our inside game has definitely been the strength of us offensively. And when we got away from that, and, we're not going to be able to play catch-up ball if we're not going to stay with our core strengths. So I'm not as discouraged as probably the scoreboard looks. I obviously think we had a golden opportunity to go into this, the new year 2-0 in the Big Ten. We didn't capitalize on it. We came back with a more consistent effort against Iowa, which we'll break down. But take away the first 5 minutes of that ball game, and we're playing Michigan fairly even, although it doesn't maybe look like it, but we're matching them, point for point from really that point on in the game. So
my thing is this, Steve. I think with a young team, you're coming off an emotional game against Duke on, Tuesday, Wednesday night. You come in, you go to Ann Arbor and play what I think is a really good Michigan team. John Beelan's a really good coach. And I think this is something that as a young team is kind of a teaching point because you can't just bring it one night and take the next night off, especially when you get into the Big Ten. So I think it's better to learn this lesson earlier than later. And I think a team needs to learn how to deal with situations like coming off an emotional game and being able to play a few days later.
Exactly. And don't think that Michigan didn't watch that game as well. So they got a little jacked up because they saw how well Indiana was playing against against Duke. And I'm sure it elevated Michigan's game to a level thinking, okay, well, Indiana's no pushover basketball team. They battled pretty strongly against the number one ranked team in the country and, had an opportunity to remain in that game all the way up until the very end. So, yeah, rising tide raises all boats. We've used that a lot. But I think one of the last things comments we made post-Duke game was the fact that the big if was going to be which Indiana team was going to show up. Were we going to be able to maintain the momentum and the intensity that we saw against Duke, or were we going to revert back? It's a natural tendency to revert back. I have more tolerance for that with this basketball team than I would this team in 2 years. In 2 years, it would be very frustrating to see us do that and to come back and revert and play like we did against Michigan. Right now, you're exactly right. It's a learning opportunity for us through and through. And hopefully we did learn something. I felt we played stronger against Iowa. We went back to our fundamental skill sets offensively. We still have the same glaring weaknesses that are going to hamper us until we make the strides on it. And that's defensive post play, defensive inside play, defensive positioning, blocking out, not relying on our athletic prowess to get rebounds for us. Yet our skill sets. We're struggling guarding against good big men. Iowa put up a good big man against us again. And we struggle with trying to contain him. So the communication is still not where it needs to be, certainly for the lack of experience that we have. So it's the same problems. They're readily identifiable. But we're seeing more consistency in offense when we don't get away from it. Again, I just keep going back. Take away that first 5 to 7 minutes of that Michigan game, and if we could have withstood that a little better than we did, maybe we have a dogfight. Maybe the outcome's a little different against Michigan. And then we go into the Iowa game, with a win and even a little bit stronger mentally. And then we come out of this thing 2-0 and sitting at least for a tie of the lead in the Big Ten going into the new year with a couple of very strong non-conference games to play and help us better prepare for the Big Ten.
Yeah, and if you look at the Iowa game, a 77-64 win, I thought they played much better. Of course, it's against a team that's not quite as talented as Michigan. But still, the same concern there. They didn't play 40 minutes. They go on an 18-3 run to get up 15 at the end of the first half. And by the first television timeout, almost that entire halftime deficit's been erased.
Yeah, we have a 1-point lead. We're down to a 1-point lead at the first TV timeout in the second half. And, that's just a lapse in, commitment to go out and really wrestle control this game and get away with it. I think that, again, I can't say I think. I assume that they got a little confident in themselves, that they rebounded back on their own, and they're, how soft coach was at halftime, how strong he was. We're not in that locker room, so we don't really know what his moxie is or what his mentality is, but they definitely didn't come out in the first 5 minutes of the second half like they wanted to put this game away early and, make a statement, reiterate the statement that they made against Duke. They missed a golden opportunity there, but then they turn around and they come back and they battle it back up. And I think at one point they had a 20-point lead in the second half again. So, it's a little adverse play, a little adversity, and they handle it well once they put themselves in that position. Any coach will tell you they'd rather they didn't get themselves in that kind of position, though. But, we're controlling the ball well. We had 10 turnovers against Iowa, and we had 11 turnovers against Michigan. So our ball control is still good. I still think we're still making a too high a percentage of stupid turnovers as opposed to turnovers trying to make good things happen. But I think any coach right now with the tenure of this basketball team would be happy if we were consistently only making 10 to 11 turnovers a game. I don't think that's a game changer for us right now. It's more offensive shot selection, and it's more of our defensive ability to guard the inside play, and it's our communication is where it would be. I'd be pulling my hair out if I was coaching this basketball team right now, because we don't seem to be making any strides on two of those three things. Offensively, I was afraid we'd get in that situation where if we got down, we'd revert back to just firing threes. And we did. But defensively, we've not shown, in my opinion, any growth at all defensively.
All right, now the one positive that I took out of this player-wise is Juwan Morgan, who I think is becoming a focal point of Archie Miller's offense. 15 points, 10 rebounds, driving to the basket, and for a 6'7" forward, he handles the ball really well.
No doubt. I mean, and Juwan Morgan right now is a product of Indiana running their offense. You probably could stick a couple other players in there that might be able to do the same thing that he's doing, but he's our go-to guy inside, and we're running the offense to get it into the post, and he's got the athletic ability to cut to the basket, to make the moves, and he's a little bit of a product of what's working well with our offense. And I don't want to take anything away from him by any stretch of the imagination, but it just goes to show if you do the little things, the results are you get a dominant player like that who now makes opponents set their defense to guard him. And if you start setting your defense to guard one player, that's going to free up other players to create opportunities for themselves. And our guard play offensively still has not been that bad in terms of point production. Decision-making still can be a little bit better. But, again, we're talking about a very young basketball team. And leadership is just nowhere to be seen, really, from I probably saw more leadership out of Colin Hartman in the times that he was in the game, both games, than I did of anybody else on that basketball floor. And maybe that's his role, but if that's going to be who they're going to designate as their leader, then they've got to give him more minutes on the court. But, I think Juwan is definitely upping his stock and helping the team by becoming such a dominant offensive player that, like I said, defenses are going to have to be set to shut him down if you want to beat Indiana, because he has the adeptness to score when given the ball inside. So that is a silver lining for sure in this offense.
The other thing I like is, Bob Knight, when he was at Indiana, they always were double digits shooting more free throws than the other teams. Archie Miller's Dayton teams were known for that. And I think against Iowa, Indiana drew 20 fouls, shot 20 free throws, finished plus 11 at the free throw line against Iowa. Now they just need to be more accurate on making them, but if they can up that free throw percentage, it's going to make them really hard to beat.
Sure. And again, that double-digit free throw advantage is a product of getting the ball inside. The two products of getting the ball inside are going to be more free throws, time spent at the line, and defensive players put into foul trouble. So it's a good observation on your point. That's exactly right. But that's what's going to happen when you do the things the coach wants you to do. Get the ball inside. Good things happen when you take the ball down low. I mean, it just becomes very difficult to guard any talented player down low. And the advantage generally always goes to the offense in that situation. And the free throw's right. We get better making them. That's going to come. We're going to get better at shooting free throws. I firmly believe that's something that the coach is working on as well. But more said than that, I think he needs to get his defensive structure into place and get some help side defense, start cutting off baselines, and watch that we don't get ourselves into foul trouble by the same task that we're trying to put the other team into foul trouble with, is by not being able to play good defense down low. But, I expect to see the free throw advantage for the rest of the season if we keep getting the ball down low. And the quicker we can get their star players and their post players out of the game, the more that's going to free up a talent like Juwan or even Davis come in and make the plays we need to make to free up our guards to get legitimate three-pointers and not hopeful three-pointers.
All right, Steve, we're going to go take a word from our sponsor, mybookie.ag. We'll be back, and we will preview Indiana's game against Louisville, the Cardinals, on Saturday. So we'll be right back after this.
Hey everyone, my name is Alex Golden. I am the host of the Courtroom Podcast, an NBA debate show here at The Grueling Truth. And I'm here with one simple message. If you're watching the games, it's time to start making money. The Grueling Truth has partnered with mybookie.ag, an industry-leading sportsbook website who reminds you that where you bet is just as important as who you're betting on. And that's why the Grueling Truth urges you to check out mybookie.ag. In addition to the usual thousands of odds, money lines, proposition bets, and futures offered on mybookie.ag daily, They also have in-game live betting and a mobile site that makes wagering on the go easier than ever. So join now, and mybookie.ag will give you a 50% bonus on first deposit for up to $3,000 in extra playing money. Just enter promo code TGT50. That's TGT50 to take advantage of this offer. Visit mybookie.ag, courtesy of the Grueling Truth Network, and enjoy winning today. mybookie.ag. You play, you win, you get paid.
All right, guys, we're back with the Indiana Basketball Weekly. I'm your host, Mike Goodpaster, of course, here with former Indiana legend. How about that, Steve? Steve Risley. The Hoosiers are going to have a battle on their hands Saturday as they face the Louisville Cardinals. The Cardinals won their first 4 games of the season, then lost 66-57 at Purdue, then lost at home against Seton Hall 79-77. I believe Desi Rodriguez, the big man for Seton Hall, scored close to 30 points in that game. And, of course, if you want to watch Louisville, they play Siena, the Saints, tonight. When we look at this game, Steve, I think this is a winnable game when you look at it. I mean, if you look at Louisville, they seem to be stronger with the guard play. They got Quentin Snyder, VJ King. Both guys scored 10 to 15 points a game. But underneath, I mean, they've got one forward in Deng Adel, who's pretty solid, but the other guys aren't big point scorers. And I think that Indiana can take advantage of them underneath the basket, especially if the guards will penetrate.
Yeah, exactly. This game has a lot of watermarks to it in its own right. You know, it's not that Louisville's not without its own set of issues and problems going on right now, too. And they see a game like against a marquee team like Indiana as an opportunity for a little bit of redemption, to put themselves back on the map a little bit, be relevant, that they are cleaning their program up, so to speak, and that they can still play with anybody. You know, they're in a dogfight right now, just as Indiana is, to try and make the tournament at this point in time. So they're battling for something that neither Indiana nor Louisville are used to battling for, and that's just the ability to get in a tournament. And so there's a lot at stake. I look at this as it's a big rivalry game. So anytime I see something like that, like a big rivalry game such as the Louisville-Indiana, I can equate that to a good test for us for a Big Ten play, because most of the Big Ten games are going to be rivalry games against teams that we play, some more rivalistic than others, so to speak. But, you know, in the Big Ten play, every game.
Steve? You just made a word
up. Yes, I did.
All right, that's good.
Yes, I did. Yes, that was underwater basket weaving 101. So yeah, you had to make that word up underwater in college.
Oh, that makes it even harder.
Hold your breath and try and do that. But you know, there's a lot of good opportunity for Indiana in this game. The game's in Louisville. At the Yum Center, as I was reminded, no longer Freedom Hall, which is where I played all of our games down there. But so it's an away game. It's a good, strong test. It's going to be a high-profile game. Both teams have a solid reason to win the game. Louisville for a little bit of redemption. Indiana to begin to show and develop the opportunity for some consistency against some good talent. That if we lose the game, it doesn't hurt us. If we win the game, it definitely goes a long way into solidifying some of our belief in ourselves that we can play in the Big Ten. So it's an important basketball game through and through for both programs. So that being said, it's going to be a hard-fought basketball game, and Indiana's not going to be able to have the lapses that it'll have. It's been having against some of the weaker teams it's been playing. So it's a good test for us at this point in time without consequence of significant damage to anything other than maybe our egos by losing to Louisville and getting ready to head into Notre Dame after that, which is a highly ranked team. And then we start, the rest of the year into Big Ten play until we get into the dance. So it's a good start, good way to start to me this run here now to the tournament.
All right, so when you look at this game, what do you think is the key, the one biggest key that will decide who wins and who loses this game?
Our ability to play up to our ability. If we do the things that we're capable of doing. If we get the ball inside, we stay within ourselves offensively. And if we continue to start to find some communication and some progressiveness on defense, Louisville historically is always a very athletic basketball club, very quick first steps, very good moves, very, very leapers, athletic players that can jump over you. If we're not doing the fundamental things we need to be doing, then we're going to be in trouble. So it's a great opportunity for us to hone in on those skills, which are going to be essential for us to be competitive in the Big Ten day in and day out. If we don't do those things, then, we're going into Notre Dame, which is in Indianapolis, which is somewhat of a neutral area, although probably still more heavily favored to Indiana than Notre Dame, than Notre Dame. But still, it's almost a neutral court up there at Bankers Life. So we don't want to lose 2 ball games now going into the Big Ten. We don't want to lose 3 or 4 games at this point now. We want to get some positive momentum going. We want to get some feeling good about ourselves, knowing that we're playing within a structure. It just needs to be an opportunity where Coach Miller is coaching from an arena of improvement and complimentary results rather than derogatory results, and saying, just keep drawing things down, because this team right now will tend to live and die with itself, get up and down on itself based on how it plays right now, I believe, as any young basketball team will do. They'll take it to heart and wear their emotions on their sleeves. And we just don't want to get into the start of the Big Ten season with, a Charlie Brown cloud hanging over our heads.
Yeah, and if you look at this, I think it is huge if Indiana can get one of these 2 games. After that, you got 3 home games against Fort Wayne, Tennessee Tech, Youngstown State. So if you get one of those, you go 4-1 over this time. You're sitting there at 9-5. You go to Wisconsin, and I think Wisconsin is going to be down this year. I think they have been so far. And then you go to Minnesota. So I think a split here would be huge for this team, give them a little bit of confidence. Then you get 3 straight games where you should take care of business before you go on the road to Wisconsin.
Yeah, and it's a good observation again. And, I talk about the relative importance of Louisville and Notre Dame, because those are 2 teams that are probably a little bit better than us at this point in time, or a little more organized than we are at this point in time. The games remaining are kind of just holiday tournament games where, we have lesser opponents. There's other ulterior motives for playing those games. Put some wins in your column for RPI or for recruiting purposes. And, we shouldn't lose any more of those games this year. We had our fill of those early on in the year. So these are the relevant games going into the Big Ten. We're playing at Wisconsin. Generally, that time of year you go up there, it's ice cold. It's crappy weather up there. You're traveling on the road. A lot of distractions up there. It's a barn to play in. And then Minnesota, they're ranked right now, as I understand, and or they were, I think, until Nebraska beat them. And I understand Nebraska rushed the court for beating Minnesota the other night.
I didn't know anybody ever rushed to court for beating Minnesota.
Well, I guess you set your goals, realistic goals, and the realistic goal for Nebraska is to beat Minnesota who was ranked 14th in the country. So, but that's 2 tough games getting into the Big Ten. Again, you don't want to get yourself too far below 500. So it's a very critical time. It's kind of like the first 5 minutes of a basketball game. It's kind of like the first 5 games of the Big Ten really kind of dictate what kind of mood swings you go through for the rest of the Big Ten and how you approach each game. Is it going to be a life or death game, or is it going to be, we can pat ourselves right now and continue to show why we belong in the tournament situation right now with these first 4 or 5 games in the Big Ten. We're 1-1 on the first 2, and we want to come out and play good. So we want to make some good strides right now. Take a look at what our weaknesses and strengths are right now. Then you got the 3 intermediary or, easier games to play going into the Big Ten to refine some things, as you said. And hopefully you're going at full bore of what this team's capable of going at full bore when we get to go up to Wisconsin and take on Minnesota.
Yeah, and if you look at Notre Dame, they're probably going to be a little bit upset after losing at home to Ball State a couple nights ago.
Yeah, Yeah, you always look for retribution from a game like that. Notre Dame certainly is a team that can deliver retribution. But again, it goes back to show that you can't take anybody lightly in college basketball these days. I mean, there's so much parity out there among programs that if you slip and look beyond, or do not take a team as seriously as you should have, which I really thought Indiana should have beat Michigan. But yeah, I don't know that we took them that seriously, and we let them jump out of that early lead, and then we just were playing catch up and couldn't quite catch up. We played them even, but not caught up, and the same thing happened with Notre Dame. So now Notre Dame's got some redemption to do on their own, and they have a reason to play well in this game. They come up to Indianapolis. They always want to draw fans from Indianapolis up to South Bend. They consider it part of their territory as well, basketball-wise especially. They're representing the ACC. They're right in the middle of Big Ten country. So, there's a lot of good reasons for Indiana to be ready to go, because Notre Dame is definitely going to be ready to go. They're well coached.
Steve, are we going to go live after this next game?
Let's plan on it. Let's see. What time is the Louisville game?
It's 2:00 Eastern, so that means the game will be over right around 1:00 your time.
I'll get back to you on that.
All right, guys. So keep an eye out for the post-game show for Indiana and Louisville on Saturday.
I'll tell you what. I will put it up on our Twitter page, whether we're going to be able to go live or not. As soon as I figure out the scheduling, I will. I'll put it up on our Twitter page, Grueling Hoops, at Grueling Hoops on Twitter, and I'll announce it there whether we'll be live or we'll be on tape delay for that Saturday game.
All right, guys, so you can go to the Twitter page at Grueling Hoops to find out when the next show is, but I assume it'll be sometime Saturday. Hopefully it will
be Saturday for sure.
Yeah, it will be Saturday, so make sure you keep your ears tuned for that. I want to remind everybody to check out everything on thegruelingtruth.net. We had our NFL Pick'em show last night that was posted this morning. You can find that on there. We had a college football Pick'em show, which was basically looking back at the top 4 teams, whether the selection committee got it right or not. That was myself, Brian Schmidt, and former Alabama offensive lineman Bill Searcy. Later on this week, you can catch Dexter Carter, former 49er great. That's a hard thing to say in one sentence, Steve. He'll be on with the San Francisco 49er Weekly Show. Me and Joe Kelly, former Bengal, will be on with the Bengal Weekly Show so we can bitch and cry about losing to the Steelers again. Make sure you check out Inside Boxing Weekly. The Ringside Boxing Show, which this past week our guest was welterweight champion Keith one-time Thurman. So make sure you check all those out. You can catch all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Steve Risley.
Hey, one thing, Mike. I'll make the pick'em of this week. My understanding was, after reading Twitter today, that the tickets, face value tickets for the Colts Bills game are going for $4.
That much?
As I was reading on Twitter, that is about the same price as a cup of Starbucks coffee. So my pick'em of the week is go buy the cup of coffee and watch the game on TV.
There you go. Or just don't buy either and stay home.
If you're out in California, go golfing.
Well, as long as the golf course doesn't catch on fire.
Jeez, please don't let that happen.
Yeah, that would be the worst thing ever. Steve would be back in wherever he was from, Lawrence Central, before you know it, if there was no golf courses left.
No, I wouldn't. There's plenty of golf courses out here that are not burning.
All right, Steve.
No way.
We'll catch everybody Saturday.
It's 80 degrees out here right now, so I don't know what it is in Indiana, but I'll guarantee you it's not 80 degrees.
It's like 36 degrees where I'm at today.
Yep, and that's why I will not come back.
2 days ago, it was like 70.
Yeah, well, what have you done for me lately?
Yeah.
Anyway, should be a good week of basketball for us. Look forward to it, and we're marching again. We're marching in the right direction. We continue to take baby steps, which is what we should really be expecting for this program to be doing right now. I'm more pleased, but I am disappointed, and I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the team's going in the right direction. I really
Definitely.
like Archie Miller. I think he's going to get this done. I think this team is contending to be in the top 10 in the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, there is no reason anybody should be down about Indiana basketball right now. They're ahead of pace of where I thought they would be at this point in time right now. And I think it's a real credit to Coach Miller and his staff. And you give this man 3 or 4 years, and I think Indiana will be relevant talk for national championship contention. I really believe that based on what I'm seeing right now.
All right, so let's just book this. In 2020, just plan on doing a post-game show on the Monday night in April after Indiana wins a national championship.
For some reason, I will have to look this up. I think that isn't the 2021 national championships in Indianapolis?
Well, that'll be when we go live after they've won back-to-back national championships.
I'll be at that game. I will come back to Indianapolis for that game.
All right. You need to buy me some tickets then. I'll go with you.
Oh, come on. I got connections. I don't have to buy you tickets.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, I was just trying to be nice. I mean, just hook me
There
up,
you go.
Steve. But,
There
all right,
you go.
guys.
We can do that. We can make that happen.
We're going to get off of here. Make sure
All
you
right.
check out thegruelingtruth.net. So for Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.